Welcome back to DissedMedia, a startup story, the podcast where I take you along our journey of starting DissedMedia from the ground up. You get to hear all about our challenges and accomplishments as we either grow DissedMedia or go bust. Either way, you're going to have a front row seat to hear it all. And along the way, we're going to have some special guests who share with us their wisdom and insights and what helped them along their startup journey to success. So get ready as we get into it and try to help those get better at what they do. Welcome back, everybody, to DissedMedia, a startup story, the podcast where I take you behind the scenes of starting a business from the ground up. And along the way, we like to bring in some special guests. And today, we're going to be getting into, I think it was going to be a great conversation around the human side of being a business professional. Because a lot of times, we focus on numbers and metrics and KPIs, which, another word for metrics, but, profitability. And the thing, I've mentioned it before, mentioned it in classes I teach, I mentioned it on this podcast, businesses primarily exist for one reason, revenue and profitability, right? It's a very extrinsic goal. And we, as human beings, we have some extrinsic desires, right? We like title and pay and promotion and all of that wonderful stuff. But we also have internal desires, these things that drive us to be fulfilled, and we want connection with people, and we want goals, and we want to get better at what we do, and we desire to improve our understanding of the world around us. And unfortunately, business doesn't always sync with that. Business. I like to say, I think lions are beautiful, right? But I wouldn't want to be a friend with a lion because it would tear me up, right? And so business can sometimes do that with us as well. And so I want to introduce our special guest is going to help us get into some of these topics and more. Dr. Eboni L. Truss. Eboni, how are you?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me. I am well. Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining. You had reached out to me, and by the way, I always I love when I get messages from people. Like I read my emails all the time, and you had a really interesting. We're going to get into your guide here in a moment, but you had some really interesting things to say about people and leadership, and I thought, man, this is right up our alley because these are the kind of things that I like getting into.
It's that.
Before we get into the good stuff, I want to start with, we'll call it the better stuff, and talk about what set you on this path and on this journey. Like, tell us a little bit about Eboni and, your background and what brought you to where you are today.
Cool beans. Thank you. So thank you again. And yes, I am Dr. Eboni L. Truss. I'm founder of the Unbecoming Movement, and what I get to do is make it easy for accomplished leaders to grow from performance to purpose. And that is actually my trajectory, right? You mentioned earlier, Ben, about KPIs and how we as business owners, like we're always looking at the metrics and at the KPIs. And one thing that I have learned is that we also have to look at what I call keen personal insight. We got to have that KPI, right? And again, that's my story. And so most of my life, I wanted to go to law school. I wanted to practice law. And fast forward, wound up not doing that and got a respectable job as a teacher, and then later as a school administrator. And it's very interesting because even inside of that container, that safety of a job, I knew I was very much unemployable. And so because I had always had a business on some level and in some capacity, even while I was teaching, I was also running a business. And when I finally got the go ahead to just kind of launch out into the business, I was following all the gurus, all the experts. I had a coach all the time. And slowly but surely, I moved away from the original intent of the business that I started into what other people, my coaches, the experts, and all of that felt like I should be doing. Oh, you're so good at such and such, so you ought to, start business around this, or what are your clients asking for? Do that, and that kind of thing. And so I moved away from the original intent of my business, and in so doing, I moved away from my own personal authenticity. And so now I had become this type of business owner. I had become this shadow or this version of myself that was consistently uncomfortable. So by the time I left teaching and launched out full time, I was at a complete 180 from where I started, as far as my own personal purpose, as well as the original purpose of my business. And so I had an epiphany moment in 2020 where I was sitting at my desk and I was journaling, and I realized, wait a minute, like I've deviated so far from everything, like for the
Wow.
sake of success.
That's this is interesting. So there are, as a matter of fact, on the board of DissedMedia, we have a few people who do career coaching and
Mhm.
executive coaching. And what I'm hearing is that you seem to have gotten coached away from doing the thing that was kind of your passion.
Mhm.
And was it because it sounded more promising in a lucrative way? Like there was more of a, like you can make more money doing this than you can doing that. And so I would pivot to this if you're interested in the revenue side of things.
Absolutely. In the revenue side of things, and also it was very much ego for sure. The revenue
Yeah.
side of things and the achievement, the accolade side of things,
Yeah.
like the applause. How much applause would this get me? Yeah, definitely those two things.
It's interesting because when when people, and this is something I saw early on in my career when I started way back, that people would take the money or the title because they that was the greater desire than the actual work that was going to be done.
Mhm.
And so, they went after that opportunity. And I would see that after a year, maybe two, they would come back or they were doing something different. And, what changed? And it's like, I couldn't do it. It wasn't me. I didn't like it. And I learned early on that, like, doing something for the money and the title, it's got to be more than that.
It has to.
And you gotta find the thing, and it's tough. By the way, I know for people who are still shaping their careers, and they're like, Ben, yeah, but come on, like I gotta make money, I gotta feed my family, I
Yep.
gotta pay rent,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Like I need these things, or we have children on the way, or there's things my family needs and wants, and this is my opportunity to break through.
Hmm.
But it's so tough because when you put those other things ahead, you end up becoming a bit enslaved by those other
Oh,
things that
that's the perfect word. That is the perfect descriptor. It is, Ben. It is. That's perfect.
so how did you find your way around this? I mean, you're sitting there at one point, you're saying this just isn't working anymore. So what did you discover that you needed to do differently?
Well, here's the thing, Ben. It actually was working. Like I was making money. Like it was, like it. And I find that like the people who I get to talk to and work with and stuff, it is working. And on the outside, everybody is giving them the applause, and they are feeling guilty because they're like, I should be grateful.
Yeah,
I should.
you're there, but you're just unfulfilled.
Yes, yes, I should be grateful, but I'm not. I am dissatisfied. I am empty. I am so unfulfilled. I feel like a stranger inside of
Oh,
somebody else's dream.
been there.
Yet, yes, yes.
Been there. I've shared this before in other conversations and podcasts I've done, but
Mhm.
there was a period of time in my career where I was experiencing panic attacks that I've never really had that before, but like just these sinking feelings, butterfly, like it's like being on a roller coaster and your heart is racing.
Wow.
And because you're trying so hard to satisfy so many things on so many different fronts.
Yes.
And then that feeling of too, being so connected to your work, your job, your title,
Mhm.
that you take people, and even sometimes those closest to you, they kind of take a back seat to those other things that you're trying to get done.
Absolutely.
It's thankfully have a very understanding wife who put up with those times.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it's really challenging. So you're on this path of saying, all right, it's working, but there's a hole
Yeah.
there
Oh my
somewhere.
goodness. A huge chasm. Yes. So I'm sitting at my desk and I realize, okay, wait a minute. Like I have completely lost myself. And I have two sons. And like you said, very understanding husband, understanding sons. And yet I'm like all this realization is coming. Like I've been physically present, but emotionally, mentally, I am so far away. I'm at my son's football game, but I'm feeling guilty because I got to do that I hadn't done yet, right? And so in that moment, I was like, you know what? Boo on all of that because I have now got to make the decision to live my dream. Not everybody else's dream, not live inside of other people's expectation, what I call expected and external identity, but to actually be me and be okay with that and reconnect to my soul and not just my salary. Period. Like this is what has to happen because I have my sons watching me. I am a pattern for them. I am an example for them. And do I want my grandchildren to experience what I perceive they are experiencing or not experiencing? Because I'm living inside of this shell of myself, this inauthentic, fake it till you make it kind of situation where I'm living outside of me. And I made the decision that day, no, enough is enough. And initially, it was for the sake of my sons. And then over time, I recognized, okay, that's what got me there. But what kept me there was the realization that there are people who are like living inside of this paradigm, inside of what Vishen Lakhiani calls the culture scape. It's expected of us that we do the thing to get the title, to make the money, to look good on the outside, to look good on paper. It doesn't matter how you feel about it. As a child, grow up, go to college, get a good job, and then once you retire, live. Like once you
Yeah.
retire, you're free you know.
Yeah.
But until then, you are beholden to the culture. And the culture says overwork is necessary. The culture says a mask is necessary. To climb the ladder is necessary. And I call BS on it.
It's interesting because I think that I look at what I do today, and I do a few things, and those who follow me know me. I kind of work in three different industries. I work in consumer goods, I work in higher education, and I work in media. And I put my main focus in the primary work that I do, and everything else is kind of like love and passion and desire because I just enjoy doing those things.
Mhm.
Not that I don't enjoy the other stuff too. I really do. But my point to that is the reason I can do all of this other stuff is only because I'm doing the things that I enjoy doing.
Yes.
And that if any of those things started to feel like a chore or that they were controlling me, and it doesn't mean that I'm like, I still work with a high level of commitment and obligation to these things,
Mhm.
but I not to the point where uh, you know it is imperative to my existence that I have to do
Yes.
this thing,
Yes.
because I need to, save face. I'm so worried about the perceptions I'm creating with, senior leadership or managers or peers or, sometimes, one of the things that I found in working in big organizations is the absence or the ability of being able to be yourself.
Yes.
You have to put on the face that is expected within that bigger place. And you know what?
Absolutely.
Sometimes I like to poke fun. Sometimes I like to make a
Me
joke.
too.
Sometimes I like to
Yes.
do things that are just like not in that, in that paradigm, in that
Mhm.
perspective. But you can't, because you got to worry about like who's going to see this and who's going to misinterpret this or that or the other. And it's like I just don't want to live that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely not. Yes. Yes.
And it's tough. It's tough for those who are in those kinds of organizations, because I will say this to yeah, always, I'm always the counter argument to my argument. I will say this. I think though there for certain organizations, it is important that you maintain that brand, that facade, that because things can get out of hand if you don't have a unified approach to things, right? So it's almost like when you're so big as an organization, you get trained up in these organizations, you have to really conform to the expectations they have for you.
That's why, Ben, so true. And
I know,
and
true, but
that is why I'm so grateful for my epiphany and what I get to do inside of entities and with individuals, right? Because even though you are inside of the machine and, up until now, you may feel like a cog within that machine, it is still possible to detach yourself from that corporate identity in order to be authentically you. And I think that when individuals are able to be authentically themselves in a workplace, that is when that overall organization will start to see their KPIs improve. They'll start to see more money come in because you can only fake for so long. You can only wear a mask for so long before it becomes incredibly heavy. And what most people call it, like the other side of that is, oh, I'm stressed out or I'm burned out. No, you're just tired of faking the funk. And so now you're in a funk.
yeah, it's funny. When I teach, I often tell students, I said, there's that saying, "Fake it till you make it." But the other side of that they never complete it. They never complete that sentence. So it's actually fake it till you make it, but eventually you're going to break it,
Yep.
and somebody else is going to have to fix it. And that's it.
Yep.
It just over time it doesn't work.
It doesn't.
You have to figure it out. You can't just continue to fake it.
Mm-mm.
So let me ask you this: the unbecoming,
Mhm.
your website. What led you to this? What brings you around to that point?
So that was my process, right? So I had become what I thought I was supposed to be in order to be successful. Whether that was inside of a job or as an entrepreneur, didn't matter. I had become somebody I didn't recognize anymore, and I hated it, right? And so the process of detangling that is what we call unbecoming, right? So getting back to the place of being who I was born to be and getting to do the things that I was born to do, say the things I was born to say. And each of us has that. Each of us uh, has that moment of reckoning, I'll call it, where we're like, okay, I am over it. And but what do you do with that? Because most people, when they have that realization, I have become somebody I didn't intend to be, they feel like they're trapped in the golden cage. And like you said earlier, I got kids to feed. I have a spouse that I have to look at every day, and you know what I mean. And I got a mortgage to pay, all the things, and so I can't just and deviate, right? And at the same time, it's like, but I can't keep living like this. And there's this tension that's there. And that is the call to unbecome, right? And that's where I found myself. And I took the road that is unfortunately less traveled. And like I said, call that process unbecoming, where I began to detox from all of the noise, all of the rhetoric, um, all of the ignorant voices, I'll say. Very, very like they had a heart for me, like parents, all, all those respected people, right, who have a heart for you, but they also sometimes are vicariously trying to live through you, or they are passing on their fear or their experience, trying to put it into yours, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was done with that.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little bit of mix, especially when it comes to family and friends. There are those who are trying to help,
Very well
but
intentioned, yes.
very well intentioned, but they're not close enough to the situation to really be able to, be insightful
Exactly.
to help that way. And then others, are the kind of the naysayers, the "I told you so's," right? And that never
They're
helps.
the best. They are the best
you know,
people.
So it's almost like you need that person that listens.
Mhm.
And maybe they don't necessarily have the answer, but you need that person to be able to vent to be able to say, here are all the things.
Mhm.
And I know, as a husband, what I often find myself trying to do is solve a problem,
Yes.
right? So I find that when somebody tells me something, I'm like, oh, you need an answer.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I'm trying to give you an answer. And it's not always that. Like sometimes people are just trying to talk because they need to get it out. They're not necessarily looking for an answer.
Yes.
But when you're going through these challenges, so walk us through a little bit of what were some of the strategies that you implemented for yourself that worked for you, and then too, I know you've worked with some other people. How do you help them go through this process?
Good stuff. And it's funny that you mentioned, like just wanting to just talk about it, just vent, right? Um, that's really a lot of what I get to do initially with people, and that was a lot of what I did for myself. Going back to the original intent for my business, right? And just like literally talking to myself out loud. And I recorded myself on my phone, and I would listen to it, and like just trying to like peel the onion back, right? And it's very much like the corded ear plugs, right? It's like you have them stretched out, and then you put them in your pocket. And when you take them out your pocket, all of a sudden it's like this big jumbled mess, right?
Gotta take some time to
I
untangle it all.
mean, really. And pulling it, right, doesn't help. What you have to do is find the end and work your way back. And that's exactly what I did, right? And what I do for my clients. I had one client, she said I helped her to unspaghetti her brain. Great visual. It's a great visual. I helped her to unspaghetti her brain because there's all of these different competing priorities. So the first step is to do that. Is to unspaghetti. Is to unravel the cog of chords and all the things. That's the first step. And then the second step is to look at, okay, what are the through lines, right? Because even though I felt like I was so far away from where I meant to be, when I began to work through it and listen to myself, I realized, wait a minute, now I am pretty far away. However, I'm not too far gone. And so I could find the through lines, and I do that for my clients as well. I help them to find the through lines in order to give hope. Where are you aligned? We understand that there is a massive misalignment. Okay, that's cool. But where are you aligned? And let's start there, right? And then we start talking about, okay, we've gotten all of this stuff unspaghetti'd. We have found the through lines. We're working our way back. Now, what does that mean in real time? Because all of this, like, could just be the tacos we ate last night until we actually can look at this thing practically. So in your life right now, what could this look like practically? And then what help, what support do you need? Now, for some people, it is just quit the job, shift the business, whatever it is. But that's not true for everybody. For some people, it's a different trajectory, but we talk about that because for me, it's not just one blanket solution because each human is unique in their design. And so we get to talk about, okay, what support do you need and what's the follow through? And then we put together a plan because, again, it could all be the tacos until we can live this thing in real life. So we put together a plan where all of these things, all of this revelation, this discovery, uh, is distilled into every single day, because that's the part that matters. Is to put that plan together to begin to live authentically, to begin to take off the mask. And once the blinders come off, like that for me is like, I'm trying to calm down. That is like the most beautiful moment for me, is when that individual who is sitting with me is like no longer afraid to take off the mask, and they do, and they sit these, because it's always more than one mask, because there are masks around your family, around your friends, at your job, in your community, all the things. So once we take all these masks off, the relief and the release that happens is one of the most beautiful things. When all the things are unspaghettied, the that happens. Like, I really feel like it just added 10, 15 years to that person's life. No joke. No joke. And I love it.
I would like to think that I've always been a kind of person who is not easy to put a mask on, right? And to some extent, I do fight it quite a bit because I don't know. I've always been this kind of person. Like I'm just going to be who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And greatest compliment anybody ever gave me at work. Somebody said, you're just the same to everybody, aren't you? Like, you don't change it up to, if a big executive comes in, you don't do it different. You're just you. And you work with somebody who's a frontline worker, you're just the same person. And I'm like, yeah, I don't even really try to be. It's just, I don't really care. To me, it's too much.
Yes.
Too much to keep track of,
Yes.
to try and be all these different people to all these
Yes.
different people.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
now I will say, like, to my family, I'm a little bit more goofy, and I do more dumb things in front of them than I do in public. But for the most part, I'm not hampered by certain things that other people are, and it's fine. I'm not saying that it's good in any way, because in some ways that has been it's been a challenge, because it's not always appreciated. It's not always desired. People, I'm just one of those brands that I'm just not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And when the person I'm not for happens to be, a leader in the company or an executive or something,
Right.
that just makes it a little difficult. So I do find sometimes that I have to put the mask on, to appease them. But believe me, once they're out of earshot or eyesight, I'm like, the mask comes off right away.
I love that.
I always, I've said, I just don't like to be managed. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm a collaborator. I like to work with people. I like to bounce ideas off of people. I like to, collaborate, right? When I'm in an environment where somebody is going to teach me something, that's when I'm like, what? No. If I have a question and I need you to teach me something, I'll ask you. But until then, why don't we just
Oh my,
why don't we just jive back and forth and, we'll figure it out together.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but that being said, despite all of that, despite all of my internal resistance, what you're saying though about the masks, unbeknownst to me. So when I went from soda to wine, and what's interesting about that is during that transition I didn't realize how much I had really changed,
Mm.
how much I had really gotten into this very big corporate mindset that even the words you use, the language you speak,
Yep.
the business speak that you give everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, like, and it took me to your explanation that when you talk about unwinding,
Mm-hmm.
coming off of like the unspaghettiing your brain,
Mm-hmm.
man, if it wasn't for my wife, because she was like, who are you? Like, what are you doing? Why do you talk that way?
Wow.
And more so once we came out of once I came out of that environment and just switching gears and doing something different, like just brought back, like, I'm like, okay,
Is the
like I
residue.
lost a little bit of it
Uh-huh.
along the way there. And so just getting recentered and refocused, and I'll say, like, I love the fact that you've got this guide. I love the fact that you're putting information out there to help others, because I only had myself to do that. And oh, by the way, in the middle of trying to figure all this stuff out, I was also completing a PhD, which didn't
Oh my goodness.
didn't
Woo.
help because, well, I shouldn't say it didn't help. Here's how it helped.
Mm-hmm.
And you will understand this because you've gone through this process. Because you have a committee of people who are telling you how what you're thinking, what you're writing, what you're putting down on paper isn't right, needs to be corrected, isn't positioned correctly. You didn't no, you can't make that assumption. You have to dig into the facts. You have to do the research. I mean, you don't have the luxury of your own thought until you write that last little snippet at the end of your paper that says, and in conclusion. And that is the only time in your entire paper you get to express what you think, because you don't have the privilege of thought until the end. But that process makes you reflect
Mm-hmm.
and think slower and be more certain about your words and what you're doing. And I want to say it didn't help, but I think at the end of the day, it probably did, because it really slows your pace down a little
Yes.
bit.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. The high achiever, the high performer is always at a sonic speed,
Yeah.
really going all the time. But what's interesting, about that phenomena and live through it is that the finish line keeps moving. It keeps moving. So like we never get off the wheel. And so definitely having that opportunity to step off for however long and be very introspective and to slow down your thinking, which probably slowed down your physical body too. Cause like I'm reading through these books, I'm trying to research this information. Oh my God, like I'm at the library. I got
Thank God I was doing like positive psychology. Like,
oh
so at least the content I was reading
yes,
was somewhat, reassuring.
yes, yes, yes. So yes, I can definitely see how that lent itself more toward helping. Absolutely, because it gave you that time to woosah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, uh, Dr. Ebony, let's talk about your guide, because this is something that I do want to. If you go to the dailypitch.news, we are going to include it as something in our newsletter, and I'll probably put it up on our site as well. And if you go into this podcast, like there's all sorts of ways that we're going to make sure that people are aware of your guide and how to get to it. But maybe give a little bit of what are people going to discover looking through it.
Okay, so it's very near and dear to my heart. So it's called When Success Isn't Enough: 3 Simple Steps for High Achievers to Remove Their Masks and Restore Their Authenticity. And the goal of the guide is absolutely just that, is to give that slowdown, right? The opportunity to slow down and say, okay, right? Because you're at a place where you're aware some is going to have to give. It's going to have to change, right? And so inside the guide, I give 3 steps to get out of hustle mode, and to ask questions. It is very reflective. Uh, it has 3 steps, obviously, but each of those 3 steps has 3 questions where you can get real about um, your current reality. And one of those steps is one that I mentioned earlier about deciding, okay, yes, I'm feeling this emptiness, this dissatisfaction, and where am I aligned? Right? Where is everything not falling apart? Where do I actually feel good about my life? Like taking inventory of those things. So one of those steps that I use with my clients is actually in there as well. Um, it gives the opportunity to take time to face and look at that persistent ache that's there, that work won't get rid of, that distraction won't get rid of, that won't be solved by a promotion, that you can't go on a sabbatical to avoid, and therapy just is not working, right? It gives the opportunity without outside pressure to look at what's happening in your life and begin to unspaghetti it. I'm gonna keep using that. Yes, unspaghetti it.
It's a good word. It's a
I
good.
love that she said that too. So now, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, because sometimes things do just get all jumbled up and going in all different directions, and that untangling process
Mhm.
is necessary.
Yes, it's you know when everybody thinks that you've arrived and that you've made it, it kind of comes with the territory that you're all over the place. Because, like you mentioned earlier, you have so many people who are watching you, who are depending on you. And there's this self imposed pressure that happens, coupled with the work pressure and the family pressure that is just inherent in those particular spaces, right? And so it is it's crucial that you honor and you investigate those feelings, that you when you realize, okay, I've moved away from myself, I've become somebody I didn't mean to be. that realization is a blessing, and it is very important. It is imperative that we honor that and not try to run from it, because running from it will only increase the stress. It'll only increase the burnout. You'll be going to therapy twice as much in a week, you know, all the things. So, yeah, this guide helps to position a person for moving from performance. Absolutely.
When I did my dissertation work, so I focused on positive psychology. And specifically, there was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Martin Seligman.
Mhm.
Has written some really great books. And one of them, Flourishing, he gets into the model he calls PERMA. And for those who are not familiar, so PERMA is a kind of 5 elements that when you focus on them, when you improve them, we talk about improving kind of our mental health. These 5 elements help to improve your positive mental state. So positive emotion being the first thing, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievement.
Yes.
And so when you put yourself in situations, and you know, there's lots of ways that you can kind of build upon your positive emotion, doing things simply like journaling, thinking about 2 or 3 positive things at the end of the day and just writing them down as a means of saying, here, of all the things that might have been troubling me today, here are the things that went well.
Yes.
And, just trying to surround yourself with people. I always like to say, like, find people. As a matter of fact, I laid this on Jake, one of our podcasts a couple weeks back. Somebody had told me at one time that surround yourself with people who are broken out into thirds, right? So 1/3 of the people you should hang out with are people where you're trying to get to where they are. Like, you're trying to, achieve their level of success. And now that doesn't mean monetary or position. I mean, somebody may just be living a very, fulfilled life, and hey, how do I learn a little bit more about that? The other third of people should be people who are at your level, like your peers, the people who you're working with and trying to make a way in the world. And then the other third should be people who you're trying to bring up to your level.
Yes.
Like people who see you as somewhere where they want to be, and you are trying to help them. Right. And so, like, as an educator, that's often what we do, is try to work with people and bring them up. But I will say, and also as an educator, sometimes you come across people and you're just like, wow, I hope that someday I have that level of clarity, or I that perspective, or
Yes.
that to me is kind of the fun part of doing that. But when you surround yourself with that kind of audience and with a good coach, like one of the things that Jake laid on us was, he said, yeah, but you also need a 4th person. And that person has to be your cheerleader. The person who wants to see you do well for your sake.
Yes.
Right. And that balance of community around you that way, I think I don't know, does it keep you from being, getting tangled in the first place, or at least helps you untangle?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It absolutely lends itself to helping you to untangle, because it gives encouragement. Oftentimes, leaders, we're in our own silos, right? And so it's us and what we have to do and where we have to be, and all those types of things. And so when you have a community around you, like what you just described, absolutely, that helps you to come out of that silo. And then when you add to it what you mentioned earlier, journaling, which is what the guide is, it is basically an opportunity to journal, right? Like, it's almost like the opportunity for a complete 180, because you have the support system, you have the cheering section, and you have the reflection. Absolutely.
That is awesome.
Mhm.
That is awesome. Well, it sounds like some really good stuff. I think it is definitely something that, if you're hearing this podcast or, we'll be recapping this in a number of ways, but definitely something that should be looked into and checked out. So, Dr. Eboni, how do we, aside from, we're going to be doing our own promotion, how do we get in touch with you? How do people find you and find out more about Unbecoming?
Okay, so definitely my platform of choice is LinkedIn. And so I am Eboni L Truss over there on LinkedIn. And then the guide, once you grab it, that will help you to be a part of my world. And so like those are the easiest ways is LinkedIn, Eboni L Truss, and then by grabbing a guide.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for just coming on, sharing your wisdom, sharing your insights. I can tell just watching you as we were doing this, like this is such your passion, your drive.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. I love what I get to do, and I'm very grateful.
That is awesome. Well, folks, thank you all for checking out this episode of DissedMedia, a startup story. We're always trying to pack these things with lots of different topics, lots of different things that, can help people in different positions where they are in their career. And so, the thing that is important for us is to, try and provide you content, information, funny things, hopefully too, that just help you get better at what you do. So, Dr. Eboni, thank you so much for your time and attention. Everybody else, thank you for checking this out. I appreciate you popping in, and we will see you next time. Have a good one. Thanks for listening to DissedMedia, a startup story. This podcast was produced and edited by Ben Olmos and is a production of DissedMedia Corporation. If you're interested in learning more about anything you heard on this episode, please reach out to us at podcast@DissedMedia.com. You can also get more information about this and other episodes or information about our guests by checking out dailypitch.news, our business and insights publication focused on helping managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs get better at what they do.